They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. For me, it was the day I finally learned what freedom looked like. My name is Olivia, and this is the story of how a crumpled, champagne-soaked bank passbook became the key to destroying the man who tried to destroy me. Let me take you back. I was 7 years old when my real father died. Cancer. It happened fast. One day he was teaching me how to ride a bike, and 6 months later, he was gone. I remember his last words to me, whispered through oxygen tubes. "You're going to be okay, Liv. I made sure of it." I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. 2 years later, my mother remarried. His name was Richard Montgomery. Tall, polished, successful. Or at least that's what everyone thought. He owned a chain of luxury car dealerships, sat on charity boards, wore custom Italian suits, and spoke like every word was a press release. My mother was dazzled. I was tolerated. From the moment Richard moved into our home, I became invisible. He never hit me, never yelled, but his cruelty was surgical. A cold stare when I spoke too long at dinner, a dismissive laugh when I shared my dreams. The way he'd introduce me at parties. "This is Olivia, my wife's daughter." Never my daughter. Always hers. By the time I turned 18, I'd learned to stay small, keep my head down, study hard, work quietly. I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, while Richard spent thousands on his biological son's lifestyle and business ventures. I told myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need his approval. But it hurt. God, it hurt. Then I met Daniel. Daniel was kind, patient, the kind of man who listened when I spoke and remembered the little things. He worked as an architect, came from a modest background, and had zero interest in Richard's world of power plays and status games. Richard hated him immediately. "An architect?" He'd sneered when I told him we were engaged. "What's his portfolio worth? What connections does he bring? You're marrying a nobody, Olivia, just like your father." I didn't respond. I'd stopped responding years ago, but this time something was different. This time I had Daniel. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. We planned a small, intimate wedding. Nothing flashy, just family and close friends. My mother insisted Richard be involved, and I agreed. Mostly to keep the peace. Big mistake. The day before the wedding, Richard pulled me aside in the venue's lobby. He handed me a thin, cream-colored envelope with my name written in faded ink. "Your mother found this in some old boxes," he said flatly. "Apparently your father left it for you. I have no idea what it is, and frankly, I don't care." I opened it carefully. Inside was an old bank passbook, the kind you don't see anymore. Small, worn, with handwritten entries. It was from a regional bank my father used to go to when I was little. The last entry was dated 2 months before he died. The balance read, 1,240. My throat tightened. My father had saved this for me. Even in his final days, he'd been thinking of me. I looked up, tears in my eyes. "Thank you for—" "It's worthless," Richard interrupted. "That bank probably doesn't even exist anymore. But hey, if it makes you feel sentimental, keep it. Just don't embarrass yourself trying to cash it in." He walked away before I could respond. I held that passbook like it was made of glass. The wedding day arrived. Everything was perfect. The flowers, the music, the vows. Daniel looked at me like I was the only person in the world, and for a few hours, I forgot about Richard entirely. Then came the reception. Richard stood up to give a toast. I should have known. He smiled that practiced politician's smile and raised his glass. "I just want to say how proud I am to see Olivia starting this new chapter. She's come a long way from the shy little girl who used to hide behind her mother's skirts." People laughed politely. I felt my stomach turn. "And speaking of the past," he continued, pulling something from his jacket pocket, "Olivia recently received a little memento from her late father. He held up the passbook, my passbook. Now, I'm all for nostalgia, Richard said with mock sincerity. But let's be honest, this passbook is trash. The room went silent. He walked over to the champagne fountain at the center of the room, held the passbook high above his head, and dropped it into the bubbling liquid. There, he said, where it belongs. Guests gasped. My mother looked mortified. Daniel stood up, fists clenched. But I stayed seated. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply stood, walked to the fountain, reached into the cold champagne, and pulled out the soaked passbook. Water dripped from my fingers. Ink bled across the pages. I looked Richard dead in the eye. "Thank you for showing me exactly who you are," I said quietly. "I won't forget it." Then I turned and walked out of my own wedding reception, Daniel at my side. That night, I made a decision. I was done being small. The morning after the wedding, I woke up with a strange sense of clarity. The humiliation, the anger, the years of silent endurance, it all crystallized into one single thought. I'm going to find out what that passbook is really worth. Daniel supported me completely. "Even if it's just the original $1,200, he said, "it's yours. It's from your father. That means something." So on Monday morning, I called the bank listed on the passbook. To my surprise, it was still operating, now part of a larger financial group after several mergers. The woman on the phone was polite but confused. "Ma'am, this account number format is over 20 years old. You'll need to come in person with identification and the physical passbook." 2 days later, Daniel and I walked into the bank's main branch downtown. It was a sleek, modern building, nothing like the small community branch my father would have visited. We were directed to a private office. A man in his 50s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, introduced himself as Mr. Callahan, the branch manager. I handed him the passbook. It was still wrinkled and stained from the champagne. He studied it carefully, then looked up at me. "May I ask where you've been keeping this?" "It was recently recovered," I said carefully. He typed something into his computer, then stopped, frowned, typed again. "Ms. Hartwell," he said slowly, "this account has been inactive for over 20 years, but it's linked to a trust fund established in your name by your father, Thomas Hartwell." My heart skipped. "A trust fund?" "Yes. The passbook itself was just the access key. The actual funds were placed in a managed investment trust designed to grow over time until you turned 25, or accessed it with proper documentation." I could barely breathe. "How much?" Mr. Callahan turned the screen toward me. Account balance, $12,438,592. I stared at the number, read it again, and again. "That's $12 million? Daniel whispered beside me. $12.4 million to be precise, Mr. Callahan confirmed. "Your father invested in a diversified portfolio, tech stocks, real estate funds, bonds. It compounded beautifully over 2 decades. He also set up legal protections. The money is entirely yours. No one else can touch it." Tears blurred my vision. My father, my quiet, gentle father who drove a 15-year-old sedan and packed my lunches in recycled grocery bags. He'd done this. For me. He knew, I whispered. He knew I'd need this. Mr. Callahan handed me a folder. "These are the account details, legal documents, and transfer options. Take your time. And Ms. Hartwell, your father was a very wise man." I nodded, unable to speak. We left the bank in a daze. Daniel held my hand the entire drive home. Neither of us said much. We didn't need to. But as the shock faded, a new realization crept in. Richard is going to find out. And when he did, he would try to take it. I was right. 3 days later, my mother called. She was frantic. "Olivia, Richard wants to talk to you. He says it's urgent. He says it's about your father's estate." "There is no estate, Mom. Dad left me a personal account. It has nothing to do with Richard." "I know, but he's insisting. Please, just meet with him. He's been so stressed lately." I almost laughed. Stressed? Right, but I agreed. Not because I owed him anything, but because I wanted to see his face when he realized he had no power over me. We met at a cafe. Neutral ground. Daniel came with me. Richard arrived in a black Mercedes, dressed like he was closing a corporate deal. He didn't greet Daniel, didn't even look at him. "Olivia," he began, his voice low and controlled. "I'll get straight to the point. I know about the trust fund." "Good for you." His jaw tightened. "That money is significant. You're young, inexperienced. You don't understand the kind of attention that kind of wealth attracts. You need someone to manage it. Someone with experience." "Someone like you?" "Yes." I leaned back and smiled. "No." His eyes darkened. "You're making a mistake. There are legal complexities, tax implications, investment strategies. You can't just—" "I have financial advisors, Richard. Professional ones. People who actually care about my future." "You're being naive," he snapped. "Do you know how fast people like you lose money? You'll be broke in 5 years." "Or," I said calmly, "you're panicking because you just realized you can't control me anymore." His face went red. He stood abruptly. "You have no idea what you're doing." "Maybe not, but I'll figure it out. Without you." He stormed out. Daniel squeezed my hand. That went well. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh. For the first time in years, I felt powerful. But Richard wasn't done. Over the next 2 weeks, he tried everything. He sent lawyers. He called my mother daily, trying to turn her against me. He even showed up at Daniel's office, trying to intimidate him. Nothing worked. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mr. Callahan from the bank. "Ms. Hartwell, I thought you should know. Someone claiming to be your stepfather contacted us, asking about your account. We didn't disclose anything, but he was persistent." A chill ran through me. "What did he say?" "He claimed there was a legal dispute over the funds, that you were mentally unstable, that he had power of attorney." "That's a lie. We know, but he's escalating. Be careful." I thanked him and hung up. My hands were shaking. Daniel looked at me. "He's desperate." "No," I said slowly. "He's guilty." That's when I started digging. If Richard was this desperate to get control of my money, it wasn't just greed, it was fear. And I was going to find out why. I hired a private investigator. Not some shady figure from a noir film. A legitimate forensic accountant named Carla Wu, recommended by my financial advisor. She specialized in corporate fraud and asset tracing. "If there's something hidden," she told me, "I'll find it." It took her less than 2 weeks. Carla walked into our apartment one evening with a thick folder and a grim expression. She sat down across from Daniel and me and didn't waste time. "Your stepfather is in serious trouble." She opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, tax documents, shell company registrations, and email trails. "Richard Montgomery's business empire is a facade," Carla explained. "He's been using his dealerships to launder money, inflate assets, and evade taxes for over a decade. He's also borrowed heavily against properties he doesn't fully own and falsified financial statements to secure loans he can't repay." I stared at the documents, my heart pounding. "How is he not in jail?" "He's good at hiding it. Layered companies, offshore accounts. But the IRS has been investigating him for the last 18 months. He's one audit away from federal charges." Daniel leaned forward. "So why is he coming after Olivia's money?" Carla looked at me. "Because he's broke. Everything he owns is leveraged or fraudulent. If the investigation moves forward, he'll lose everything. He needs liquidity fast, and your $12 million is the easiest target." I felt sick. He was going to steal from me to save himself. "Worse," Carla said. "If he'd gotten control of your account, he would have buried it in his shell companies. You'd never see it again. And legally, it would have been nearly impossible to recover." Silence filled the room. Then Daniel said quietly, "So what do we do?" I looked at Carla. "Can we use this?" She smiled. Absolutely. Over the next week, we built a trap. Carla worked with a lawyer to draft a fake financial document, one that made it look like I was panicking and willing to sign over partial control of the trust to a family financial manager in exchange for guidance. The document was legitimate enough to fool Richard, but contained clauses that would actually make him legally responsible for any financial crimes tied to the funds. We sent it to him through my mother with a tearful phone call where I pretended to be scared and overwhelmed. "I don't know what to do," I told her, voice shaking. Maybe Richard was right. Maybe I do need help. She bought it. So did he. 2 days later, Richard showed up at our apartment, all smiles and false warmth. "I'm glad you came to your senses, Olivia," he said, sitting down like he owned the place. "This is the smart move. Family takes care of family." I handed him the document. He skimmed it, nodded, and signed without reading the fine print. "Good," he said. "Now let's get this transferred properly. I'll handle everything." "Actually," I said, my voice steady now, "there's one more thing." His smile faltered. "What?" "There's a charity gala this weekend. Big donors, press. You're invited. I think it would be good for you to attend. Publicly show your support for me and Daniel as we start managing the estate." He hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, I'll be there." Perfect. The gala was held at a historic hotel downtown. It was a glittering event, black tie, champagne, orchestra music. Richard arrived in full form, working the room like a campaign trail. He had no idea what was coming. Halfway through the evening, Richard took the microphone during the donor recognition segment. He loved the spotlight. "I just want to take a moment," he began, his voice booming, "to acknowledge my stepdaughter, Olivia, who recently came into a significant inheritance. I'm proud to say I've been guiding her through the complexities of wealth management. It's a family effort, and together, we're ensuring that legacy is protected." The crowd applauded politely. Richard beamed. Then the doors opened. 4 federal agents walked in, badges visible. The room went silent. The lead agent approached Richard directly. "Richard Montgomery?" His face went white. "Yes?" "You're under arrest for wire fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and falsifying financial documents." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. Cameras flashed. Richard sputtered. "This is a mistake. I haven't—" "You signed a legal document 3 days ago," the agent continued, "claiming financial responsibility for a $12.4 million trust fund. That signature, combined with evidence of your ongoing fraud, gave us everything we needed." He looked at me, really looked at me, and in that moment, he understood. "You," he whispered. "You set me up." I stepped forward, my voice calm and clear. "No, Richard. You set yourself up. I just made sure everyone finally saw the truth." They cuffed him, led him out. The crowd parted like a wave. My mother stood frozen in the corner, pale and trembling. I walked over to her. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said gently. But he was never going to stop. She didn't respond, just stared. I left her there. Daniel and I walked out of that gala hand in hand. Outside, the air was cool and clear. I felt lighter than I had in years. 3 months later, Richard was convicted on multiple counts. He's serving 8 years in federal prison. His assets were seized, his empire dismantled. My mother and I are still working through things. It's slow, painful. But we're trying. As for me, I didn't buy a mansion or a yacht. I didn't change my life dramatically. Daniel and I live simply. We travel. We give to causes we believe in. We honor my father's memory by living with intention and integrity. And every year, on the anniversary of his death, I visit his grave and thank him. Because he didn't just leave me money. He left me freedom. He left me power. And he left me the tools to finally escape the man who tried to make me feel worthless. They say your wedding day is supposed to be the happiest day of your life. Mine wasn't. But the day I walked out of that gala, vindicated and free, that was.